Thanks a lot, Netflix. Hey everyone, this is Kevin, your Aptrepreneur. Welcome to my media channel, and yeah, it has not been a great few days on the stock market. Today we went down almost $1,000 within a week. There was this huge drop, and some people are wondering, like, well, why is it dropping like that? Well, there's a lot of reasons. You know, there's that stuff with Russia and China going on. That's not very good. There's still vaccine hesitancy out there. You know, that's another thing. But believe it or not, one of the main catalysts for all this dropping is Netflix. Netflix announced some news that was frankly shocking to Wall Street. Very shocking. Even though, as movie fans, we've kind of been warning this is going to be a problem. And you need to be prepared. Like, Netflix's business model is extremely flawed, and people shouldn't be moving to imitate it just because a bunch of people are subscribing. And there's a lot of reasons for why they shouldn't, and we're going to talk about those reasons. This might actually be a fairly long video, but before we do that, please consider subscribing to the Aptrepreneur Media channel. If you haven't, we'd like to make at least 1,000 subscribers for the end of the year. That's not asking for too much, right? We talk about physical media, the streaming wars, and occasionally video games. Once in a while, we even do some live streams. And when I say live streams, I mean we move our stuff from Twitch over to here so that that stuff isn't lost forever. But let's talk about this article from Variety. This was today, so it more encompasses what's going on. And the headline says, Netflix stocks continues to free fall in week after quarter four. In fact, if you really want to know how bad Netflix is in the last few days, like, this is their dip from the news report. They were at like 508, and then, oh, ouch, ooh, ouch, yeah. This stock has recently experienced elevated volatility, which is something that you never would have expected. Now, why wouldn't you have expected that? Well, there's a term on Wall Street. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it's called FANG. And FANG is an acronym for Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. And the reason FANG is a thing is because these stocks are the stocks that are the big ones. These are the ones that have made everyday people millionaires over the course of time. They are by far the most stable. And when one of them experiences validity, it is extremely scary to the market, because if one of the good, secure ones isn't doing very well and suffers from a huge drop when it's projected to just grow forever, well, then the stock market responds. I mean, personally, there are more stable stocks you could buy, like Coca-Cola, but you know. FANG is basically something that all investors recommend you have in your portfolio. And I do have some FANG. Not in my Robinhood account, but, you know, with stash and things like that. So, you know, when Netflix stock tumbles, that's why there was such a huge drop there. But why did it stumble? Well, let's take a look at this real quick. Netflix stock fell more than 10% Monday morning, continuing the steep downward trend it's been experiencing since the streaming giant reported last week it had ended 2021 with slightly lower than expected subscriber gains and anticipated a weak start to the first quarter. At approximately 11:50 a.m. Eastern Time, Netflix stock was trading at $353.31 per share, down from the $397.50 per share the stock closed at Friday. Last Thursday, Netflix reported a net gain of 8.28 million subscribers for quarter four, again driven by markets outside of North America, to reach 221.8 million total worldwide. Netflix previously forecast 8.5 million paid net adds, while Wall Street analysts expected an 8.3 million, according to FactSet. Netflix shares fell more than 20% after hours trading Thursday morning, as the company forecast 2.5 million net subscriber adds for the first quarter of 2022. For quarter one, Wall Street analysts had been projecting a gain of 7.25 million subscribers per fact sheet. Now, why is this important? Well, this is important because, and we've talked about this on the channel, streaming is the wild, wild west. It's nowhere near as profitable as people think it is. And in fact, I have had people at Netflix tell me, because, I've been honest about this, I was a consultant at Netflix for a period of time. Gave opinions on the shows, just want to disclose that. But there was people in the company that said that the ultimate goal for Netflix to really be making money and not losing it was they needed at least 300 million or more subscribers paying $30 a month. That was where they projected that they would make money. Netflix still loses money, and one of the reasons they lose money is because they have to spend so much money on content. Because if they're not making new content, people will leave. And I just think this shows that Netflix's business model is broken. It needs to be rethunk. And the reason the whole stock market was brought down, not only for the aforementioned reasons that Netflix is considered like a growth stock, a major growth stock, that's why it's part of the FANG acronym, but because so many companies changed their business model to look like Netflix's. Disney decided to pivot from theatrical and physical media and make it all direct to consumer. They want Disney Plus to be basically a Netflix. Like, oh yeah, we will get 300 million subscribers like Netflix does, and it will all be direct to consumer. It will be consistent revenue stream, and we can bank on it. And also, Disney has the advantage that Netflix does not have, where Disney owns, I think, some 85% of the stuff that's on their service. It's a very high amount, where Netflix owns 40% or something like that. I think once Netflix hits like a 60-70% where they own all their own stuff, they might be in a better position. But otherwise, they are spending money hand over fist on content. And it's not working, because at the rate where they are now, the stock's been being propped up because of growth. They're always adding 8 to 10 million subscribers. But the January projections suggest they may have hit a ceiling. And if they've hit that ceiling and they're still not profitable, that means Netflix will not make money on subscriptions alone. And not only is that worrying investors on Wall Street about Netflix, it's worrying investors about everything. If Netflix, which is by far the biggest streaming service, can't make money on subscriptions alone, then what hope does Disney have? What hope does Paramount have? What hope does Showtime have? What hope does HBO Max have? Now, HBO Max, like Hulu, is already looking towards the future. The future is ads on streaming. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear it. And they'll say, well, I'll just pay for the more expensive plan and not have the ads. That's not going to cut it. That plan, if they continue to have it, will not just be $5 more than the typical price. It's going to be like $20 or $30 more. Because at some point, you need to start making money. And subscriptions are not paying the bills. They're going to have to do something else. Now, the thing that I think is going to happen is, I think the studios and whoever has these streaming services, they're going to have to really rethink what streaming looks like and how it fits in. Because, we've talked about the Turning Red thing from Pixar on my iCritic channel, and that's a move that does not make a lot of sense from an investor standpoint. Yes, the Pixar movies are the most streamed movies on streaming services in 2021. Animation just does very well on streaming because parents like the fact that they can put it on with their kids. The kids will watch it over and over again. So because of those numbers, Disney takes a Turning Red and says, well, it's going to go straight to Disney Plus free of charge. But you have some questions you have to answer, like, okay, well, you're cutting out the theatrical revenue. I mean, maybe it wouldn't have been a blockbuster hit, but it would have brought some money in. And then you're missing the DVD and the digital sales money. And then you could put it on Disney Plus, where honestly, it's going to do well regardless whether it's brand new or not. Raya and the Last Dragon had a theatrical release. That has a physical media release. They made some money on that, and Raya and the Last Dragon was another movie that did very well on Disney Plus. But, you have a Turning Red, and it's cutting out revenue streams. And what about Netflix? They recently canceled Cowboy Bebop. And a lot of anime fans were happy about that. They're like, yeah, screw Cowboy Bebop. That show was terrible. But guys, Cowboy Bebop was not a terrible show. Maybe it's not the anime, but if it got another season, I think they would have figured out the flaws that were in the first season, and the second season would have been a lot better. But here's the problem. Even though Cowboy Bebop by viewing metrics was a success, it was an utter failure on Netflix because it did not convince people to subscribe to Netflix. And the thing is, it's like, well, how many people have Netflix? I mean, so you can see how the business model is broke. Netflix is only interested in shows that are going to get people to subscribe to the shows, but a lot of people have Netflix. There's not many people to go to next. And then that creates more problems, because if you just keep creating shows and canceling them after one season, you might start ticking off the people who have Netflix and they're going to cancel it. And then you have Netflix funding like $200 million movies, and then they just put them on Netflix free of charge. You know, it's just part of a buffet. It's not going to work going forward. And for these other studios, it's not going to work either. You know, I remember back when Friends was on, and Friends had the kind of viewing numbers where Friends could be successful. Like, if you stop and think about it, it's really a weird thing. Friends averaged, I think, 20 to 30 million viewers an episode at the peak of its popularity. And that was good for NBC, because it's like, oh, there's about 30 million people watching. Well, they can now go to companies and say, what's 30 million eyeballs worth to you to advertise on this program? And that's how Friends gets funded. But let's say Friends comes out now. They've got the first season or two up, and they have the same numbers, but nobody subscribed to Netflix to watch Friends. Well, Friends doesn't last 8 seasons under those circumstances, because the more people watch it but don't subscribe, the more of a failure it is. And in fact, here's the funny thing. If there's like a super popular show that a lot of people are watching, that might be a problem for Netflix, because Netflix makes money when you pay for it and you use it less. If you watch a show over and over and you just keep using it, that's bandwidth that they have to pay for. So they don't care if there's a show that's a worldwide hit that everyone on the platform is watching. If it doesn't get a certain amount of people to subscribe to the service, they don't want it. And now the business model is failing. The business model is failing because of this thinking. So what's going to happen going forward? Well, Netflix has already raised the price by a couple dollars. You're going to continue to see price increases. But here's another thing that's going to happen. You're going to start seeing sponsored shows. You might not have outright commercials just yet, but there's going to be sponsors of shows now. They're going to say, hey, this show has this many millions, and do you want to sponsor the show so that they see an ad in front of an episode? Like, that's just going to happen. And then at some point, they might start putting commercials in the middle of the shows. And then at some point, these studios, whether, I don't know if Netflix is ever going to realize this, but even like Paramount and Disney, they're going to realize, you know what? The data does not support that people will not subscribe to our services if they have to go to the theaters to pay for a movie. You know, they'll pay to see the movie and they'll watch it on streaming. We can have both worlds. Sony is one of the few companies that realizes this. Sony, and granted, they don't have a subscription service right now. They don't have a Sony Plus or whatever. But they know that, hey, you know what? We can put a movie in theaters, make a few $100 million, put it on DVD and Blu-ray, and then we could make some money there, and then we can sell it to a streaming service. And we have made money on that movie 3 times. Sure, there was exceptions where, like, they sold Greyhound to Apple TV Plus, and they sold Hotel Transylvania 4 to Amazon because, you know, they just delayed movies so much. There were a few movies where it's like they basically just cut their losses. You know, sell it to a streaming platform, let's get our money back, and we'll move on to the next thing. That was kind of the thing with that. But otherwise, Sony is one of the few studios that understands that it has to be a and. It's not a but. It's a both theatrical and streaming. It's not a theatrical or streaming situation. And the thing is, as movie fans, we knew that this was eventually going to be the problem. Especially, you can't be around for like all these years as Netflix has and still not be profitable and call that a winning, successful formula. It's just not going to happen. But now Wall Street is realizing it, and that means that, well, we're going to have to see Netflix change. We're going to have to see Netflix change, and we're going to have to see other companies that have streaming services change. The whole idea that you could eventually get enough subscribers to make a massive streaming platform possible, that has been proven false by this news. And that's why the Netflix stock tumbled. That's why it brought down the whole stock market. And that's why you're going to see changes at Netflix before all is said and done. But anyway, that's where we are going to leave this video. What do you think? Does this news have you concerned? Are you going to keep your Netflix even though they've raised the prices? What do you think about this? I'd love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.